If you've ever looked at Cape Coral on Google Maps and wondered what all those blue lines are, this video is going to change the way you think about boating forever. Cape Coral has over 400 miles of navigable canals. This is not a typo, 400 miles. To put that into perspective, that is more waterfront than any other city in the world. More than Venice, more than Amsterdam, more than anywhere on the planet. I'm Cessna, your Cape Coral waterfront realtor, and I work specifically with boaters who are tired of the short season up north and want to get on the water 12 months a year. Now, if you have questions about buying, selling, retiring, or relocating to Cape Coral, there's a link in the description to book a strategy call. Chicago and Midwest buyers are reaching out every week, and I would love to help you figure out if this is the right move for you. Now in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how Cape Coral's waterway system works, what it means for your day-to-day life on the water, and why it matters when you are buying a home here. This is the video I wished every Chicago boater had before they started looking at properties. Let's get into it. Cape Coral sits on a peninsula bordered by the Caloosahatchee River to the south and east and Matlacha Pass to the west. Now, the entire city was essentially built from scratch, starting in the late 1950s by two brothers named Jack and Leonard Rosen, who dredged canals throughout the land before a single house was built. What they created was a grid of freshwater canals and saltwater canals that runs through the entire city. That distinction matters more than most people realize when they first start looking at Cape Coral real estate. Freshwater canals and saltwater canals are two things completely different, and where your home sits determines everything about your boating life. Freshwater canals make up the minority of Cape Coral's canal system. We're talking roughly 180 miles of freshwater canals throughout the city. These canals do not connect to the Gulf. They are landlocked. You can kayak them, view wildlife, fish them for bass and bluegill, and they are beautiful. But if you want to take your boat out to the Gulf, a freshwater canal will not get you there from your dock. Saltwater canals are what Chicago boaters are really after. Cape Coral has approximately 222 miles of saltwater canals. These canals connect through a series of waterways that eventually lead you out to open water. So when you hear someone say a home has Gulf access, that means it's on a saltwater canal with a navigable path to the Gulf. Now, here's where it gets important. Not all Gulf access is equal, and that is something I'm going to cover in detail in the next video in this series. But for right now, understand that the first question to ask about any Cape Coral waterfront property is whether it's freshwater or saltwater. Everything flows from that answer. The saltwater canal system in Cape Coral connects to the Gulf through several primary outlets. You can reach open water through Matlacha Pass on the northwest side of the city, or from the southwest and southeast, you head south or east to the Caloosahatchee River, which flows out through San Carlos Bay and into the Gulf. Now, here is something that surprises a lot of buyers when they first start looking at Cape Coral properties. No matter which part of the city your home is in, the time it takes to get from your dock to open water can range from just a few minutes to over an hour. That is not specific to one quadrant or one neighborhood. A home out near Burnt Store Road in Northwest Cape Coral might have you out to Matlacha Pass in 15 minutes. Another home not far away could take you 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the route, the bridges, and how the canals connect. And one more thing worth noting, all of Cape Coral's canals are idle speed and no wake zones. You are not running wide open through the canal system. That is part of the lifestyle here and part of what makes the neighborhood feel the way they do, but it does factor into your travel time to open water. So when you're evaluating property, traverse time does matter. And here's the part Chicago boaters never forget once they experience it. That entire ride, whether it's 15 minutes or 45, happens from your own backyard. No car, no trailer, no slip fees, no driving into the city on a Saturday morning. You walk out your back door, step onto your dock, and you are already on the water. The canal is not an inconvenience, it's part of the experience. On a weekday morning, you might take the boat out for a couple of hours of fishing and be back before lunch. On a Saturday, you might cruise over to Tarpon Point Marina for breakfast, then head out to the Gulf for the afternoon. Drop anchor at a sandbar with a cold drink and a view that goes all the way to the horizon. Then stop at a waterfront restaurant on the way back and tie up at their dock. That is a normal weekend in Cape Coral for waterfront homeowners. Not a vacation, a normal weekend, and then there are the sunsets. Now, Cape Coral sits on the Gulf, which means you are watching the sun go down over the open water every single evening. Chicago boaters know Lake Michigan at sunrise. The Gulf at sunset is something entirely different. On any given evening, you can idle out your canal, point the bow west, and watch the sky turn colors that do not have names. That becomes part of your routine in a way that is hard to explain until you've lived it. The canal system means that some of the best waterfront restaurants, marinas, and raw bars in Southwest Florida are accessible by boat. You are not just gonna be on the water and coming back. You're using the boat the way Chicago drivers use a car. It becomes your primary way of getting around on weekends, and after a few months of living here, most people wonder how they ever did it any other way. Think about what that actually means day to day. Dinner on a Tuesday night becomes a boat ride. Sunday morning becomes a slow cruise through the canals before the rest of the neighborhood is even awake. You start looking at the water the way you used to look at your driveway. It is just how you get places. And because the canals run through the entire city, you are never far from something worth seeing or somewhere worth going. Dolphins work the canals regularly, manatees show up in your backyard, osprey and herons become part of the scenery. The water is not just transportation, it is the lifestyle itself. For a lot of Chicago boaters who make the move, the thing that surprises them the most is not the weather or even the fishing, it is how much more they actually use their boat. When it is sitting right there behind your house, every single day, 12 months a year, you find reasons to go on it that you would never have back home. For Chicago boaters who also fish, the saltwater canal system adds something most people do not expect. The saltwater canals in Cape Coral hold snook, redfish, tarpon, and sea trout right in the neighborhoods. You do not have to leave your backyard to catch world-class inshore fish. Some of the best snook fishing in Southwest Florida happens right inside the canals, especially during the warmer months when the fish push into the shallower water. Now, if you fish on Lake Michigan, you know the drill. You're running out to find walleye or salmon, dealing with wave action and weather. In Cape Coral, on a calm canal morning, you can be fishing from your dock with a cup of coffee in your hand. Now, the fishing is different, the species are different, and the conditions are almost always more comfortable. That does not mean Lake Michigan fishing is not great. It just means Cape Coral gives you a completely different experience 12 months a year. Understanding the waterway system is not just interesting background information. It directly affects the value, the usability, and the right price for every waterfront home in Cape Coral. Two homes that look identical on Zillow can be completely different investments depending on whether they sit on freshwater or saltwater, whether they have direct Gulf access or indirect Gulf access, how many bridges stand between them and open water, what the clearance of those bridges is, how far they are from open water, and how long that ride actually takes at idle speed through the canals. I've worked with a lot of buyers from Chicago who almost bought the wrong home because they did not know to ask these questions. They saw a beautiful house on a canal, the price looked right, and it checked every box. Then we started talking about where they wanted to take the boat, and it became clear that what they were looking at was going to give them a long traverse through the canal system every single time they wanted to reach open water. That is a very different lifestyle than what they had pictured. Now, the good news is that once you understand the system, you can make a much smarter decision about which property fits your boating life and your budget. And that is exactly what we're going to get into in the next video in this series. In the next video, we're going to go deep on Gulf access, what direct access means versus indirect access, what bridge clearances mean for your boat, how all of it affects the price of the home you're looking at. Now, if you're serious about buying a waterfront home in Cape Coral, that is one that you cannot skip. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. And if you are already past the point of just watching videos and you are ready to make a real conversation about what it looks like for you specifically, there's a link in the description to book a strategy call with me directly. Chicago buyers reach out to me every week who are exactly where you are right now. They've done the research, they know Cape Coral is on their radar, and they want someone who knows this market and knows boating to help them figure out if it actually makes sense for their situation. That call is free, it's focused, and it'll give you a clear picture of what your budget gets you on the water here more than spending hours on Zillow ever will. I'm Barry Cessna, your Cape Coral Waterfront Realtor. Book the call and let's figure out if this is the right move for you.